Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I wanted to just do a little celebration because I have reached TBR Zero for my owned books. And I am so pleased. This has been something that I've been working on for a few years, and so I thought I would just take the time to kind of make a video talking about sort of why I wanted TBR Zero, what my journey to it has been, and just kind of celebrating the fact that I achieved it. So first, let me explain what I mean by TBR Zero. So basically, over the past few years, I have been working on reading everything that I own, both physical and ebook, that I consider on my TBR. So this does exclude a couple of categories of books that are in our house. So for example, there are a number of books that Sush, my husband, owns, that he brought into our house, that I don't consider things that I want to read. Also, there are a number of books that we own that are things we're planning to read together, like the entire Discworld series. So I don't consider that on my personal TBR because we're going to read it together. And we also have a number of books that are not in English, and those are just things that are either old manga in Japanese that I have on my shelves, most of which I've read, but a couple of which I haven't, and some other books that we've gotten in other languages that if I ever want to practice those, I can do, but I don't consider them on my owned TBR. And in terms of getting to TBR Zero, what that means is that everything that I own, I either have read or I have DNF'd, or I have unhauled. Sometimes I just lost interest in books and got rid of them. But I achieved TBR Zero as of the very last day of 2023, and I'm really happy about that because it's been something that I have been wanting to do. So first, let me even just talk about why did I want to get to TBR Zero. I think that buying books and having all of these possibilities is actually something that so many people like, and it's totally fine to not have TBR Zero, but to have a huge TBR of things you want to read. That's absolutely a great thing. But I kind of personally had a couple of things that started happening around 7 years ago that changed what I wanted to do with my book collection. So we ended up moving and buying a condo, which is where we live now, about 7 years ago. And around that same time, a couple of different things happened. The first is that because we moved, we kind of got very permanent furniture, and we have a limited amount of shelf space for books. And because it's a condo, it's not huge, I don't really have places to expand my books into, and I like to display them. I don't want to like double stack them or anything like that. So there's just a limited amount of space. So that is all of the books that will ever fit. Another thing that happened around when we moved is that I read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Kondo, and I thought that had so many great ideas. This is the whole, does it bring you joy? And it made me realize that, over the years, I had built up such a huge collection of books, many of which I'd held onto, even though I didn't really care that deeply about them. And so I'd gone through a huge unhaul where I got rid of a bunch of books that either I'd read and didn't care that deeply about, or that I had bought with the intent to read, but, never really cared deeply about. Lost interest in. And then the third thing that happened was when we moved, I started becoming a really heavy user of our local library. We have an amazing library system where we live. It's just one of the biggest and the best in the entire US. And I can get anything through that. I can get pretty much any book. I constantly am borrowing books from there. And so I have all of this access to getting books through the library, so I don't really need to buy them anymore. So what has happened is that because of this, I tend to prioritize library books which have due dates, and so I need to get them read. There are also a lot of the new releases I'm requesting through that, and because I basically got into BookTube about 5 or 6 years ago, I'm always hearing about new things, and I'm not really sure if I'm going to like them, but I want to try them. So I've really switched very heavily from reading things that I own to reading things from my library, which means that a lot of the things that I had previously bought were just sitting around and I wasn't picking them up because I was always prioritizing library books. And I realized that I didn't really want that. I wanted to get through the things that I owned or get rid of them. It's totally fine to unhaul as well. So a couple of years ago, I started working on that, kind of working through, looking through, are any of these things that I don't care about anymore? And if I still care about them, then let's read them. And last year I had, in 2022, finished reading through all of my owned books that were physical. And so then this past year, 2023, I was working through my ebooks and I got through all of them. And now I just feel so excited because that means that everything that I own in my house is stuff that I love. And every time I see our shelves, it just brings me so much joy because they're great books. And it's really exciting because we read through the library at the end of each year. we make a list of our favorite books and we go buy them. So it's not that I'm not buying books, I'm buying plenty of books, but I buy them after we read them. And then it's so fun to fit them into our library and to, figure out where they go and maybe turn some of them face out so that we get to see them extra special. And it's just such a fun process. And I love that feeling of having books that surround us that really, really are meaningful to us, not just there because we happen to buy it and it feels wasteful to get rid of it. So I love that. And I'm really excited that kind of going forward, that's the way that we're acquiring books. And it also gives me a lot of freedom to just pick up whatever I want from the library and get to prioritize that and not feel a little bit guilty about it. So I'm really, really pleased. And I just thought that it would be fun to kind of talk about that and to celebrate it. I would love to hear from you guys as well, just sort of what your relationship to your owned books is. Do you have way too many, or are you somebody who only buys them just as you're about to read them? Is it something that you like to just collect, or is it something where you feel that little bit of guilt about needing to read it? So I'd love to hear from you guys. Just leave me a comment down below.